Avi Meyers, Northtown News Magazine. Time to have our most frequent guest, and we're going to get right into this. There is a runoff election April 17th, and the incumbent alderman since 1973, Alderman Berny Stone. How are you today?
Hi, Avi. How are you?
Good, thanks. So let's, what you going to do to make things go your way? You got 48.3%. You need 50% plus one.
Actually, I'm at zero right now.
Okay.
As my opponent is also at zero, and we're starting from scratch. What am I going to do? I'm going to start out by correcting all the untruths that were told about me. Starting out with the fact that I've been portrayed as some greedy, grasping individual. They talk about me and how I raised all the salaries. They didn't bother to say that I'm the only alderman the city council ever gave back his raise. If they bother to check the record, they'll find between 1999 and 2003, I refused to accept a raise of $10,000 a year. In other words, I refused $40,000. That doesn't sound like a very greedy alderman, does it?
No.
I'm the only alderman who refused to accept a raise. So rather than portraying me as someone who accepted something like $100,000 over a period of, incidentally, 33 years, they should be saying, hey, Berny Stone refused to accept a $40,000 raise. But they didn't portray it as that. I'm going to also point out that they talked about me helping an individual get a building permit by changing the law. I didn't help any individual. I did help a class of individuals, people who had large families, by changing the zoning law so that people with large families could get permits to add additions to their houses.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add here also is people don't realize that the person that the law was changed for was the late Rabbi Yitzchak Giffen, who the Brisk Yeshiva building is named after.
That is right.
He's got 10 children. Anybody who knows anything about Yeshiva Brisk knows that they're an impoverished institution. Very worthwhile. He worked under Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik, one of the great rabbis that's ever been our grace to have in Chicago.
Well, he wasn't the only one. I mean, there was a lot of people. I mean,
he had no money, though. My whole point is that Rabbi Giffen was with 10 children, and that's the salary from Bristol. He was a pauper. It's not because he was a rich, powerful person.
But he wasn't the only person. I mean, there's Irish Catholics with large families. There's Orthodox Jews with large families. The ordinance was very restrictive. So we changed it. I mean, the ordinance was so terrible that the Reform Zoning Commission adopted it in the new zoning code. I mean, obviously the ordinance was good. Otherwise, the Reform Zoning Commission wouldn't have adopted it.
And these people wouldn't be able to live in the city.
Of course. Otherwise they
and we're talking single-family houses, not condo developments.
That's exactly what we're talking about. And that's the reason why it was adopted. It was adopted for people with large families so they wouldn't move out of the city. So that's not so terrible either. Then other things. We want to correct the record. So that's one of the things I'm trying to... incidentally, they talked about my son-in-law in the car rental business. Years ago, I did have a son-in-law who was in the car rental business. In fact, he's been divorced from my daughter for over 15 years. But I didn't pass any special laws for him. What they said originally was correct, that some of my fellow aldermen did rent cars from him. That's not against the law. That's absolutely okay. In fact, even though he's no longer my son-in-law, I still rent my car from him. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, some of the other things that are being said, look, I can't help it. There's nothing wrong with what I've done. Everything I've done is legitimate.
Well, let me ask you, okay, I'm reading for her literature. For too long, our ward has gotten less back from City Hall than any other ward in the city, which means we're 50th in terms of getting money back?
That's absolutely incorrect, of course, because every ward gets the exact same amount of money under our setup, where we each get and currently $1,112,000 per year. And so to say we're last in the city is to ignore the fact that we all get the same amount.
Well, ignoring facts is something that's being done a lot. Well, let me ask you another question. Okay, now it says Alderman Stone put illegal 24-hour parking meters along Devon.
That also is a misstatement of fact. And in fact, Ms. Doler knows this because I have a series of correspondence to Ms. Doler. She forwarded me a letter from a cab driver who happens to be a friend of hers because he's part of her campaign, Mr. Siddiqui. And she forwarded me that letter, and I responded to that letter, sending her a copy of the ordinance which I introduced, which made the meters on Devon Avenue 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Unfortunately, the Department of Revenue installed meters which didn't comply with the ordinance I introduced and were 24-hour meters. I immediately, upon receiving the notification from Mr. Siddiqui, had the Chicago Department of Transportation change all those meters. Ms. Doler had nothing to do with it. I did it. I introduced the ordinance from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. The Department of Revenue put in the wrong meters. As soon as I was notified, I had the meters changed. I don't know what Ms. Doler is talking about other than the fact that she notified me. And I have a whole series of correspondence between her and Mr. Siddiqui and myself. And everything in there indicates that she gave me the notification. I notified her that we would immediately change it. So what did she have to do with changing the meters? I don't know.
Well, as a matter of fact, just to verify from my standpoint, and as I talked to people within the 24th District and people in the Revenue Department who've also verified the fact that you had nothing to do with putting in 24-hour meters. And this is just, I have a problem with when people stretch the truth like that. Now, let's talk about some other charges. We've got a beautiful picture here. Well, let's talk about all the empty storefronts, abandoned buildings and all that. Now, here's a nice picture along Touhy Avenue, and this is basically was going to be, people were going to put a mosque there. Then they understood that logistically.
It's the old Jimmy Fong's, and everybody knows that was going to be the mosque. I talked to the group that wanted to put the mosque out of there from locating in a different location. The property was bought up by another individual for the purpose of making sure that they didn't put a mosque there. As a result, he was going to put a kosher restaurant on that location, and during the interim period, the store was empty. And that picture was taken in the interim period.
But this is not, she talks about abandoned buildings.
There's no abandoned building. In fact, during the last year, there has been one abandoned building in the entire 50th Ward, which is located on the 6400 block of Hamilton. And it's an apartment building of 12 apartments. And we're well aware of it, and I've introduced an ordinance to have that building torn down. It's currently pending. So, that's just a misstatement of facts. And again, another half-truth. And any statement with respect to that, and pictures like this, seek to misstate facts. The same brochure, incidentally, talks about revitalizing commercial districts like Touhy and Western Avenue. Now, that's a joke. Now, Ms. Doler is well aware of the fact that we have passed a tax increment financing district for Touhy and Western Avenue. Now, what do you think a tax increment financing district is for? For exactly that purpose, to revitalize a commercial district. Now, why is she talking about doing something that we've already acted upon? That's exactly what we've done. We've passed a TIF to revitalize the commercial district along Touhy and Western Avenue. Now, she's going to take credit for something that I've already done? Well, that's great.
Well, let's also talk about Nazy Dollar will also work to revive Devon Avenue as the premier destination in the region for multi-ethnic shopping and dining.
Devon Avenue is already the premier region for multi-ethnic shopping and dining. It is probably the 8th, I think it's classified as either the 7th or 8th largest international shopping area in the city of Chicago. It is clearly one of the premier areas and locations that our
people come from all over for it.
All over the city come to see. It's been featured in the Chicago Tribune magazine, I think, at least 3 times in the last 5 years.
Yeah, Steve Dolinsky, the Hungry Hound, is always coming to Devon to show the different kinds of cuisine.
And absolutely.
Being written up in the Tribune sometimes.
How is she going to revitalize it? I don't understand what she's talking.
Maybe she's going to create a special service area. Oh, wait, you did that, didn't you?
Yeah, we already did that. Some of the brochures that Ms. Dolar has put out makes me think that, quite frankly, that I'm living in a slum. I don't understand it. I think I live in one of the finest neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. She's trying to scare people. She talks about a crime-ridden
We've experienced more crime and gang activity. It's taken years to address crime and gang activity. We don't, Sonny and I went through this with her. We don't have those kind of gangs.
Well, first of all, we've talked about this before on your program. We know what the crime statistics show for this neighborhood. We know that crime is approximately exactly the way it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. If anything, it's less than it was.
It's less. As a matter of fact, statistically, it's actually a little bit less. We had about a 1% decrease in crime, which results in dozens of crimes not happening.
But if you read her literature, you'd think that people are afraid to go out on the street.
Well, you've got abandoned buildings, of course, and you've got these empty holes.
We don't have abandoned buildings. She talks about broken sidewalks. She talks about abandoned buildings. She talks about empty. Where is she? I don't know where she's walking. I have a problem. She talks in one brochure, she talks about streetscapes. Does she know that within the last 15 years, we've had 2 separate streetscapes along Devon Avenue? Well, of course, the problem is her age. Now, she talks about my age. Let's talk about her age. She's so young, she doesn't know about this. She's so young that she doesn't really understand that these things have already occurred. Now, she wants to talk about the fact that I should be thrown on the junk heap. But as a matter of fact, she's so young and inexperienced that she doesn't understand that one of the things that comes with age is memories. And I have a long memory. I remember these things that occurred. Now, some of the people have said that perhaps I'm being too arrogant when I speak. I'm not being arrogant. I'm trying to state facts. And sometimes when you state facts, people think you're arrogant. I want to assure your audience that I'm not being arrogant. I'm merely trying to state facts. And if stating facts is arrogance, then maybe I have to plead guilty. But all I'm trying to do is state facts.
And actually, you do a really good job of it. We're also running out of time here. So if people would like to contact your campaign and volunteer and help and all that, what would they contact?
Please call me at 539-0050.
773-539-0050. I want to thank my guest, the Alderman of the 50th Ward. Thanks to Sonny and my entire technical crew. Good luck on the election, which is already in progress. And, hey, make sure you vote, and we'll be back soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.